All men are created in the image of God and have a mandate on their life to be a creator, a producer, someone who makes something. However, we are bombarded in society and in our consumerism culture with messages of marketing to buy, and consume all the time. In today's episode, you're going to get equipped with a fresh look at how to break the consumerism mindset and move into your position as a creator and a producer. What will you create? Welcome back to another episode of Raising the Standard. This is Josh K, and today the release date of this episode is Black Friday. And I actually wanted to release this specific episode on this specific day. And the reason for that is Black Friday is like the height of consumerism, right? It's the day where all the switches are flipped to get you to buy as much as possible. So leading up, this whole past week has been marketing coming at you, consumerism, consume, right? Buy as much stuff as possible, get it on sale, and you've been programmed. We're all in this matrix where we've been being programmed with buying messages to turn us into just mindless consumers that buy whatever big corporations want to put in front of us. And I thought this was the day that I want to come out with a contrary message. And that would be, instead of consuming, what are you creating? And I think about this right now as we go into the next year. We're about to flip over the calendar from 2025 to 2026. Is it going to be a year where you just continue in a zone of being a passive consumer, lapping stuff up, buying what's put in front of you? Or is this going to be your breakout year? Is this going to be the year where you create something, where you produce something, and you unleash that latent potential that God's placed in your hand and in your heart? And so for today's episode, I'm joined by a special guest. I'm about to introduce you to Steve Bremner. Really interesting way we met, but Steve is an accomplished author. He's a ghostwriter. He does a lot of things with writing. He actually, I'll let him tell the story, but he's been helping me with Standard 59 behind the scenes. He's the man behind the blog. And we've been working together for, I don't know, Steve, how long it's been, but let me introduce you to the audience, and you state your credentials because you are quite accomplished. You're a published author and you've done quite a bit of things in the writing space and also helped other people get published as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you for an intro, and then we're going to jump in, and we got something interesting planned for you guys where Steve's going to actually be interviewing me a little bit about how I went into creator mode and why we're even having this podcast today and how you even have the opportunity to listen to it because of moves that I made. So Steve, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate you having me on your podcast. Longtime listener. So I say that kind of jokingly because I've listened to every episode of Josh's podcast and helped him with making articles from a lot of those interviews. So to get to how you framed that, yeah, I've been publishing books on Amazon since 2013. And prior to that, writing on the internet and doing podcasts of my own. And along the way, I started to encounter opportunities to help other people. You know, people would say things to me, Josh, like, you know, I'd pay you to do this for me or show me how to do this when it comes to the books. And you didn't mention it, or at least if you did, I missed it. I've also narrated over 45 audiobooks for people. And that ties into how you and I met too, because I got an email about 4 or 5 years ago from somebody who reached out to me about narrating your audiobook for the Standard. And, you know, I wanted to make sure, like, is this like somebody speaking on the author's behalf? And so I Googled you and I looked you up on the internet, found standard59.com and found the way to contact you. And I wrote to you and asked you, like, do you know about this? And you're like, yeah, but I've already recorded it. This guy's just doing me a favor. Or you were somewhere along the stage.
Yeah, real quick, just to break in, it was one of the guys in our coaching group. He wanted just to bless me, which was super amazing. And he found you and he reached out to you and said, hey, like, I want to take care of this. I want to pick up the fee. I want the standard to be an audiobook. But you didn't know, and he didn't know. I had already just recorded it and we were in the process of releasing it. But that was super amazing that guy wanted to bless us, and that got us connected. And Steve, you're also a missionary. So like, tell us your background and the whole thing, because this is going to be a really interesting conversation. And guys, I promise you, stay with us because it's going to inspire you. And there's a strong call to action for you to step up and create and run with what God's put in your hands.
Correct. So I am talking to you live from the mission field down in Lima, Peru, or Chorrillos, the southern tip of Lima. And I do these kinds of things with books and audio projects as a way of freelancing and tent making. As you know, if you read your New Testament, Paul being a tent maker on the field, that's the majority of the way I earn my income to provide for my family and do the kind of things we're doing down here, especially organic type of church ministry. My wife does something that involves tutoring, Venezuelan refugee kids after school. But I've been here 16 years, came here as a single guy, met her along the way. I go back further than that to, the Pensacola, outpouring, Brownsville revival, depending on, what you've heard about it. And I got bit by that missions bug where, I needed to go off somewhere in the world and change the world, bring revival or whatever kind of ideas I had about myself at that time. And all along the way, I've always been into writing. I've always been into producing content. Like you said, create something. And, usually from the Bible, usually from, taking things that people have misconceptions about and objection handling, to use sales speak. So, I've got a couple of my books on my hands here. One about divine healing, 6 lies people believe about divine healing. That was the first one I tested the waters with on Amazon and learned some marketing, learned some things having my hands tied by being in another country and not doing book signing or speaking engagements and all these kinds of things. So I've learned quite a bit about how to promote a book using the internet, how to get found out about or discovered, build a platform online. And then the book that I kind of worked up to after that was about speaking in tongues. 9 lies people believe about speaking in tongues. And I had self-published that for a while, about a year. And that was easily my best-selling book and getting a lot of people in touch with me. And a publisher reached out to me about re-releasing it. And so I get to tell people I'm a published author in the sense that I didn't just put it on Amazon, but like a company wanted to take something I wrote. And so I'll leave it at that because this is your show and you're having me here to interview you about your books too and what you've been able to do with them, right? So
Yeah, well, we're gonna flip it now because um, for the guys listening, I want to really walk through what it looks like to be in a place in life where you feel you're destined for more, but you're not sure what the next step is, right? And guys, stay with us, even if you're like, hey, I'm not an author, I don't want to write a book. Many of you do want to write a book, or you're supposed to write a book, whether you agree with that or not. But it could be releasing a podcast. It could be starting a program. It could be whatever you're thinking about, launching that new entrepreneurship project, or a ministry, whatever God's put in your heart. So I think this is going to touch on all those things because I really want this to be a conversation around what it feels like going from a phase where you're not sure what to do to stepping out in faith, because writing a book is stepping out in faith, and like all the things that go through with that come with it, and take you to the place where you're supposed to be in your process. So, Steve, with all that being said, kind of laying a foundation here, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can ask me questions. And together we'll have a conversation that's going to enrich the guys. And really, guys, I want you to get some takeaways from this. It's not about me or being super accomplished, it's just about a journey of stepping out in faith. And you'll never know what's on the other side of your obedience if God called you to do something. Right now, I'm sitting before you doing a podcast that I would have no idea I was doing this if you asked me a few years ago. I have no idea that I would get messages from around the globe, literally, of people I've become friends with, of people I work with, of people that just drop me notes and say like, your episode changed my life, or, your book had a major impact on me. I'm so humbled and honored by that. And we deal with a lot of obstacles and barriers on the way to releasing our voice and whatever we're called to do. So, Steve, I'll let you take it from here. That's just a little taste of like some of the things I've experienced, but um, you take it to where you think it's where we can start from.
Well, yeah, I think that starting a podcast or starting a book, I'm curious for you because even though I've been working on this with you for a few years, I don't actually know, or if I don't remember which came first for you, the podcast or the book, or was it like a both and thing that God called you to do?
The book came first. Real quick story on the book. Never really set out to write a book. I think I wanted to write one at one point in my life. I like to write and I love books. So let me just say up front, Steve and I are both readers. So I have an extensive library. And really, if you hear anything about the way I speak, do Bible study, or people comment sometimes about some of the depth and some of the things that we talk about here, or the angles I come from, it's all things I've acquired through reading and through mentorship, through books, and through listening to other men of God in my life. So books have had such a profound impact on my spiritual journey, my professional career, and my life in general. But if I take you back to 2016, um, I was just doing a Bible study for myself, just reading the word like I do every morning, spending time in devotional time. And I was just looking at the gospels through a fresh lens. I was just reading the gospels, and I was seeing things Jesus was doing that I just haven't noticed before because of my life experience. I now was running a high performing team. I'm in a corporate 100 environment, Fortune 100. And I'm seeing things that he did that I didn't necessarily pick up on when I was younger because I didn't have that frame of reference. And I just started journaling. I just was journaling things that I saw. And then over the years, I started organizing it. I'm like, wow, I think this could really be like a devotional. Maybe this is something. And it wasn't until like 2 years into it that I said, okay, I think this is really going to be a book. And I was in an environment with a bunch of entrepreneurs and people doing things like that. And it just inspired me to say, okay, I think I'm going to do this and I'm going to go for it. So that's how it started. And the podcast was something that I was encouraged to do by friends, people around me. I had a podcast coach because I play in this entrepreneur space and I've attended different masterminds. I've met people that specialize in different areas, and I hired one of them as my podcast coach. So Lewis helped me out. We launched the podcast, and kind of was just a stair step of faith. Like, didn't really have anything planned, just said, let's start going with this. And that's how it started going. And now I'm talking to a guy in Peru right now.
Well, the reason I ask you that question is because sometimes I talk to authors who they want to start a podcast to promote their book, right? And other times there's people who've already been podcasting for a long time, and a book naturally, it comes out of that, right? Like I started a podcast in 2007, and from that, seeing what topics were most popular and things I was blogging about that were hitting a nerve, that's where I came up with the idea for, a couple of the topics I published books about. And so then I still had that platform already to go to promote these books and get people to review them, get people to help me when it was time to launch, get people to recommend it if they already know, like, and trust. So I was just curious in your case, which came first, because there's a lot of overlap between these two things in a lot of authors' lives, but especially your ministry, your calling. So do people need to start a podcast in order to write a book?
It's a great question. The answer is no, you don't need to. It certainly can help with the promotional side. So I've learned that after the fact, like, oh, I actually did it the right way. I was talking to a friend who is a published author, and one of the things he promotes is like every author should have a podcast. If you're looking to build a platform and you have a message that you feel called that you need to get out there. So in hindsight, it ended up being a really good move to launch a podcast. I really enjoy it because I like to speak. Some writers just like to write. There are people who are just purely authors and they really are in their zone when they're writing, and they're not necessarily in their zone when they're speaking. I'm probably a speaker first and like maybe a writer second. I don't know. I like them both. And so it was pretty natural for me to want to talk about the topics that interest me and that I feel men are dealing with, and where I feel the Lord leading me to talk about. So Yeah. So the short answer is no, you don't have to have a podcast. If you feel you have a message, here's, if I take you back to like when I was launching the standard, part of it was also I needed an outlet. And so many of you guys listening right now, you need an outlet because, my history is because I moved around a little bit, Steve, um, because of the job. I've lived in various locations. And so I grew up in a church where I was used, I was in ministry, I moved. And like whenever you move and you go to a new church, they have to get to know you. There's a time period. You just don't jump into any kind of leadership. And a lot of us are looking for like, hey, is there an outlet for ministry in a church? And sometimes that takes time. Now, my first church, when we moved to Brooklyn, we did get used in a really major way as part of a ministry school, prayer team. I was overseeing small groups. And then we moved to Pennsylvania. And then it took time. I didn't really want to jump into anything ministry oriented for a while, but eventually I started my own men's group there. But sometimes we get stuck in between. And it's like a lot of us end up waiting for like, is someone going to come to the door, knock on it, and come and get me and take me to my calling? And it doesn't happen like that. So I found writing for me, like, this really fills my bucket. I get to release this. I don't know if anyone's going to read it or anyone's going to listen, but for me, I was developing a message, I was refining it, and releasing it was fun. And releasing it felt like a calling, and it gave me an outlet. I needed an outlet. Where can I minister? And then when people started reading and I started getting feedback, I was like, whoa, like I didn't expect people to actually read this. I had a lot of doubt and a lot of fear about releasing what I did.
Okay, so talking about discovering you did it the right way with the podcast and the book, and then having feedback from people who catch an episode of your podcast or caught your book and something impacted them. What's been the most rewarding piece of feedback, or somebody getting in touch with you as specifically as a result of having written the standard or even Kingdom Driven?
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to share something now where I'm actually going to have the gentleman on the podcast to share this story because it's so good and it floored me when I heard it. Um, but I'll just tell you, if anyone's ever listened to anything I've done or you read a book and you ever sent me a note, like I screenshot them all, they go in my own little file just for encouragement, just so I can remember like, wow, this is making a difference. This is having an impact on someone. And sometimes you won't know that because when you do a podcast specifically and you write a book, especially when you sell it on Amazon, it's just putting your stuff out there. You don't know where it goes. You don't know who reads it. You don't know how it lands. I see the download numbers every week and they're pretty good. And, for podcasting, I've done well with the numbers and the international reach. We've been downloaded in it's over 100 countries at this point. But you have no idea. Like I look at the map, I'm like, wow, I never heard of this country. I wonder who's listening there. Like, what do they think? And I do have relationships with a lot of my listeners. I'm on Instagram. I'm very active at Kingdom Athlete is my handle. If you send me a DM, I'm going to read it. I'm going to get it. Sometimes we'll exchange voice notes, and I'm open to that. I'm not that big, right? I want to talk to everybody and anyone that I can help, and I want to hear from you if there's something I can do. Because I do view what I do as ministry. But I have someone who's now developed into a friendship, a gentleman named Sean that I'm going to have on the show. And I was talking to Sean in South Africa one day, and he told me the story. And we were talking for a while, but I didn't know this. And he said he was ready to convert to Islam. He's like, I was ready. I was done with everything. I had an appointment with an imam to go and basically have a conversion experience and become a Muslim. And he's like, before I left, I just felt like, let me just Google one more time. Let me just see what I can find, or just if there's anything that was going to change his mind. He came across a podcast episode of Raising the Standard. It was an interview with me. I was interviewing another men's minister. And he's like, I listened to the episode. It impacted him so much. He picked up the phone. He canceled the appointment with the imam and turned his life around. And now I talk to this gentleman, if not weekly, every couple of weeks we're in touch. He's in my community now. And it's mind blowing what the Lord can do with your voice. So let me give a quick plug here for people. I'm not special. I just said yes and I put myself out there. And I can tell you it's more than a cliche. Someone is waiting for you to show up. Like someone's waiting for you to show up, whether it's sharing the Lord with them, like in the checkout line, whether it's writing a book, if it's releasing your voice on a podcast, if it's starting the business or the thing that's in your heart. You have no idea who you can reach and who you can touch just by being obedient to the vision God gives you.
Right. I've experienced similar stories, and I won't take up too much time with that. But I've always looked at podcasting, the books, and stuff like that, like sowing seed. Right. Like you're not going to reap harvest if you don't step out and sow that seed. Right. And I know your heart for the podcast and the your books, that there's people in your world who they have a harvest that they're waiting on. They need to step out and sow this seed. They've got intellectual, property. They've got a specific, unique message or calling that a book or a podcast or both will help them accomplish. So, do you want to talk about that or encourage your listeners with that yet?
Yeah, I got a couple of things that I want to say. So, number one, um, I have to be transparent about my journey. You might have heard me say this before if people have listened to me in the past. Um, it wasn't easy for me internally to release the book. It was easier to write the book. I love writing the book and I love tweaking the book. And I got stuck in a process of tweaking, planning, tweaking, and just trying to reach this level of perfection because I am a perfectionist. However, what I discovered about myself is that I was really afraid. I really was gripped by fear and it was masquerading as perfection. And so when I wrote the book, the standard, the first book, I shelved it. And part of that was true humility. Part of that was like, Lord, I'm not trying to make a name for myself. I was obedient with this. It benefited me greatly. What do you want me to do with it? Is now the time? I have a job. I work for a company. I'm not trying to become an influencer or a minister or step out and build a platform. And I heard from the Lord very clearly within the matter of a couple months that I was to release it. And if I didn't, there would be there'd be a consequence to not releasing it in terms of my calling and a delay in what I'm really called to accomplish. And so I had to step through that fear and release the book. So rule number one, whatever's on your heart to do, book, podcast, business, ministry, um, you won't do it in the absence of fear. Fear will still be there. Um, I had to step through that. I had to conquer that fear. And every episode of the podcast was like overcoming a new fear. Sometimes I was like, what am I doing, Steve? Like, what am I like? What did I even, was that even good? I don't even know. Then I'd listen to it and I didn't really want to hear my own voice and I'd cringe for a minute. And then I just started to get to the point where I accepted the mandate and the call on my life that I need to release and be faithful to what God's given me. And it really helped me internally. So a lot of internal growth happened as I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. It's much easier and it's much more comfortable to stay in a little bubble and not put myself out there. It was much more challenging to put myself out into the public view like we're doing right now. So that doesn't go away. Um, and yeah, we want to talk about how can we challenge people. I shared a quote with Steve the other day, and the quote was this. I heard it from another men's ministry, and it really stuck with me. And I shared it with you, and it stuck with you. And we're both fixed on living our life for an eternal purpose, like pleasing the one, the audience of one. And at the end of our life, it says that if we faithfully fulfill our call, we have a vision there where we're going to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." That's what we all want to hear, that we did the job well, that we fulfilled our mission, our specific calling and mandate. Well, I was challenged the other day, and I keep in mind, I just shared with you that I'm a perfectionist, and that means you can overplan and you can overtweak. And the quote was, "Some of you are not going to hear well done. You're going to hear well planned, never done." So are you going to hear well done, or are you going to hear well planned and never done? And I was like, whoa, wow. And I feel like that was me in the past. I'm stepping through that, but I want to share that with the audience because how many of you does that resonate with? well planned. You've been stuck in a planning mode. And I find this all the time, Steve. Like, listen, every guy I work with, everyone that's part of the Standard 59 Mastermind, the coaching group, the individual calls that I take, all of you have something you want to accomplish. Now, there's a season for that, right? There's a season. We all bear fruit in our season. We have to discern what's the right season. But some of us are stuck in perpetual planning, and you have a book, you have a message, you're supposed to release your voice, you're supposed to start the business or launch the ministry, and you're just planning it, you're tweaking it, you're trying to get it perfect, but it's been year after year after year. And so, our challenge for you is this going to be the year? Can you make 2026 the breakout year where you produce and you create? And the reason I went hard on the whole Black Friday theme and just consumerism in general is because I hate it. Whenever I fall into it, I just feel like I'm used, and I don't like that aspect that we're constantly bombarded with buy, buy, buy. And when we do that, it takes us out of our creator mode. I'm not saying you can't buy anything. Obviously, there's things we need to help with our mission, but we want to be creators. We're made in the image of God and his image and likeness. He's the ultimate creator, Steve. So you are supposed to be creating. I'm supposed to be creating. And that's why we really wanted to bring this conversation forward.
Right. I don't have anything much to add to that or ask you on the heels of that, but I wrote down two things. Imposter syndrome, right? You didn't use that exact phrase, but imposter syndrome is a huge reason why many competent people, or many people who are more than capable of releasing a book or putting a message out there, that's the specific thing stopping them, right? Not grammar or having a big enough platform or whatever excuses we tell ourselves, right? And then the other thing I wrote down when you were talking about the well planned but never done, my good and faithful servant, is years ago I heard a quote from a Todd Henry book I was listening to, where he said something to the effect of, cemeteries are full of unwritten books and unstarted businesses, right? That there's more book ideas and planned books that are in cemeteries because we've just never gotten around to them. And so I've always thought of those kinds of things, right? Like, we don't get some kind of special reward, pat on the back for having intended on doing something. If the Lord told us to do something, it behooves us to actually like do it. And so those are some of the thoughts jumping around my head with that quote you and I have been voxing about a few times this week.
Right. And it's the fastest way to build confidence. For my regular listeners who listen to the show, you'll know that I just competed in a bodybuilding show. I just turned 50. And there was a huge reward internally for that. There was a lot of internal growth because I completed something I wanted to complete, and I said it and I did it. And it boosted my confidence in immeasurable ways because I finally honored the promise to myself. And it's the same thing when you start a project. Anyone can start. There's lots of books out there. There's some good John Acuff books where he talks about starting. He's got another book I just finished about finishing, actually. But there are lots of people who start. It's easy to start. Some of you guys are fast starts. That means you have a lot of vision, you have a lot of ideas, you got notebooks, you got note apps, you're full of all these different things you're going to do one day. And that was me. But how do you turn one day into day one? How do you say, okay, today's going to be the day I'm actually going to start doing it? And when I was writing the standard, Steve, like in my office, I have a whiteboard in front of me, and I heard this quote. And, I talk a lot about taking dominion, like taking dominion in life. There's a dominion mandate over every single man. I believe that the Lord's vision for us is that we would rule and reign in life, meaning you're ruling and reigning over yourself, over your circumstances. You're unmoved by external things that come your way because you're unshakable in your identity. And part of that is taking dominion in life. And one of the best ways that I know how to do it is to finish what you start. So I had a whiteboard, and on it, I had this really powerful quote. It guided me the whole way through the book. And I'm like, this is not getting erased from my whiteboard until this book is finished. And it said, there is dominion in finishing. And I knew when I finished the book, I took dominion in this area of life. I did something that many, many people say they're going to write a book. And the percentages, you probably know them better than me, but like it's a huge percentage of people who never finish the book. And so my encouragement to the listeners is finish what you start. Pick that one thing, prayerfully pick it, and then finish it. So I have two call to actions for today. Number one is a challenge to every man listening to prayerfully pick and prioritize what God's calling you to do in 2026. And then relentlessly finish it and steward it to get it across the finish line. That's number one. Number two, something I don't talk a lot about on this show, but I actually do some business consulting specifically with authors, with experts in the online space, learning digital marketing and online marketing. And we've been able to help quite a few people. And so Steve is on here, not only as an accomplished author and someone who's really good at his craft, but we have a system. If you are an expert, if you want to launch a ministry and you actually have a process where you take someone from point A, a problem they're encountering, and you have a solution. And let me just say, I believe that's what the Lord's looking for. That is the kingdom assignment over many people's lives right now is what is the unique solution that you're called to bring into the earth? Or let's just say called to bring into your sphere of influence. It could be your industry, it could be ministry, it could be something new in entrepreneurship, it could be related to business. This doesn't have to be just a ministry application. You're all called to bring solutions wherever you go. And so if that's you and this episode resonated with you and you know that, hey, like I think I heard this at the right time. I have been thinking about a book and I have been looking for like, how do I actually do it? Well, you don't want to guess. You want to learn from people who have done it before you. That's one of the best things to do is to get a mentor and to get a coach. And so better than getting just a coach to tell you what to do in this day and age is to find someone that can actually help you do it. And so Steve Bremner and myself, we've partnered up and we're looking for just a few men. This is not a huge thing. We're opening far and wide right now. Possibly 3 guys right now. It could be women as well, but 3 people that feel that they have some expertise. They're called to write a book. They can identify a clear problem and they have a solution. Well, there's a whole system for how to structure the book, how to write it, how to offer it so people want to read it. And so it leads to the next step in the journey, ultimately setting you up to serve the person well and help them accomplish the goal that they're looking to accomplish. And if that's you, Steve and I are going to drop, I'm going to put a link below for a quick questionnaire. If you just want to inquire, you want to learn a little bit more, hey, what are you guys doing? It's basically a done for you service where we would interview you, we would help you determine the idea, see if it's viable, and actually write the book for you. And the book would serve one purpose, multiple purposes, to equip and empower the readers, but also bring them to the next step in the process where you can offer your solution, whether that's just through the book or whether you have a program that follows on after that. If that's you or you know someone like that, check it out. It might be for some of you. It's not going to be for all of you, but that's something we wanted to make available because I've learned a lot. And I think good stewardship, Steve, is if we have something in our hand and we know we can help someone launch what they want to do, then I don't have the bandwidth to help the whole world, but I can help a few key people if it's something they want to explore. Do you want to add on to that or throw your comments into this process?
No, I don't have anything much more to add to that, other than just compliment that. Yeah, I see the process as something that there's more people out there that should be doing this, but aren't, and so we're just making sure to offer that lifeline. And I do want to specifically thank you for letting me be on this podcast with you and talk about that. And I'm looking forward to working with people.
Yeah, bro. I love it. You've been a great help behind the scenes, Steve. Love you, man. You're doing the Lord's work in Peru. We're happy to support you as well. This is amazing. So you're just a great brother in the Lord. Then we've been walking together and just enjoying some good fellowship. Guys, regardless of what you do next, here's the thing. You don't know what's waiting on the other side of your obedience. So as you step into the new year, as you close out 2025, as you step into 2026, what is God telling you to do? What's in your hand? What's in your heart? Will you be obedient? And I promise you, there's a reward on the other side of your obedience. Lead, fight, win. Hey guys, I take a lot of supplements to optimize my health, but there's been one brand that's been consistent. It's been a staple in my routine for the past 15 years, ever since I was introduced to this product called Perfect Amino. Made by Body Health, these are essential amino acids. They have a full line of supplements that I've taken over the last year that help me get into the best shape of my life. I do Bodycom Magnesium for sleep. I love their electrolyte product. I don't drink water plain anymore. It always has electrolytes added to it with essential amino acids. Check out the entire lineup at the link below. I'm going to give you a special code so you can save 20% on any product whenever you want at Body Health.